Hey Trumpet nerds! Today, I'll show you how to use a tool that actually lets you measure the throat sizes of your own mouthpieces, the Throat Check tool from Frost Custom Brass. A throat check tool is this handy piece of brass, like a little magic wand, where each one of these little cylindrical sections corresponds directly to a mouthpiece throat size. The throat size is the smallest section of a mouthpiece between the bottom of the cup and the back bore, and you measure it by inserting the tool into the throat of the mouthpiece from the cup side until it stops. I'll show you how to really use it in a minute, but first, why would you even want one of these? In my opinion, there are three main reasons to get a throat check tool. The first reason is if you like to buy used mouthpieces. I buy a lot of used mouthpieces myself, and sometimes the throat size has been altered, but that change hasn't been notated or stamped on the throat. For example, I bought this Bach Corp 1B on Trumpet Herald a little while ago, assuming it was still in the stock configuration. But after getting it scanned into Vencat, I learned that it had already been bored out to a 22 throat, which is 5 sizes larger than stock. The second reason is, even when you're buying new mouthpieces in their stock configuration, the company doesn't always decide to advertise the throat size. I think this might be because they don't want people's preconceived notions about the throat size to affect people's willingness to actually buy a certain mouthpiece. This is totally understandable though, because the throat size is only one of many things that affects how a mouthpiece plays and feels. And third is that the throat sizes are not always that exact and exist on sort of a spectrum. For example, even though a 24 throat, according to drill bit size, is 152 thousandths of an inch, I've had 24 throats that measured around 151 thousandths of an inch, etc. And you can tell some of this nuance using a throat check tool. Using the Frost Custom Brass Throat Check tool, I can measure mouthpiece throats easily and quickly. Each cylinder between the lines represents a throat size, in this case 30 being the smallest here at the end of the tool, and 15 being the largest near the handle. So, to measure a throat, you insert the tool through the cup side of the mouthpiece, counting down from the smallest throat until the tool stops. 30, 29, 28, 27. Okay, 26 didn't go through, so this is the 27th throat. You have to keep in mind that on many mouthpieces, the throat point is not actually right at the bottom of the cup, but a bit below that, so the visible gauge will often be one throat size bigger than the throat measurement, certainly with some exceptions. I measured my tool with calipers, and the cylinder for each throat size is about 1/1000th of an inch smaller than the official throat size. There's actually a great reason for this. Let's say that you have a 24 throat mouthpiece at 152 thousandths of an inch. If your tool is also 152 thousandths of an inch, it won't comfortably pass through the throat point, and the measurement would read smaller since only the 25 throat gauge passed through, and not the 24. A good way to visualize how this works is by measuring a screw back bore, where the throat point is the visible hole at the top. This particular back bore is a 24 throat, so when we measure it using this tool, we insert it from the top and count down from the smallest cylinder. And 23 doesn't go through, so it's a 24 throat. Another thing I want to make sure that I mention is that the standard size Frost Throat Check tool measures throats sized from 29 to 19, which would cover most typical trumpet mouthpieces. But I couldn't resist, so I ordered mine in a custom length, which measures from a 30 to a 15 throat size. I knew I had several mouthpieces in my collection that were a bit bigger than a 19 throat, and I didn't want them to feel left out. I'll show you a few more throat size checks for practice. Okay, up first we've got a Bach 6 cornet mouthpiece. Okay, so 30, 29, 28, 27, and 26 doesn't go through, so this is a 27 throat. Next up, we've got a Bach 1.5C with a 25 throat and a 24 backbore done by Osman. 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, and 24 doesn't go through, so it's a 25 throat. Next, we've got a Greg Black cornet mouthpiece. 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, doesn't go through, so it's probably a 22 throat. And finally, we've got my Bach Blankified Monette Prana mouthpiece. We already know this is a 15 throat, so let's just see how this goes. Yep, drops all the way through because it's a 15 throat. What I like about this tool is that it's pretty small. Even my custom bigger one is about 4 3/4 inches, so it's easy to store in a mouthpiece pouch, and it makes measuring throats a very simple operation. One thing I would like is if there was a way to tell which throat size you're at during the measurement process without having to count every single time. Not that it's hard to do, but sometimes I find myself remeasuring it when I'm not sure if I counted correctly. Before getting this tool, the only ways I really had to check a throat size were to, 1, take it to Greg Black's shop and have him measure it for me, 2, get it scanned by Venture Mouthpieces so I could have them look at it in VenCAD. Or 3, totally guess based on brand, appearance, or playing characteristics. I definitely recommend the Frost Throat Check tool to any of the trumpet nerds out there who buy a fair number of mouthpieces. It's available on the Frost Custom Brass website for $45, with a link in the description below. Thanks for joining me for today's episode of John Talks Trumpet, and I'll see you on my next nerdy trumpet adventure. Swish and flick. Is that how it goes? Swish? How do you swish? How do I swish and flick? Does anyone remember?
Swish, flick.
Swish, flick. Like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Are we still rolling?